Absolutely fabulous. I can't wait for our show tonight. It's a winner.
We have a winner. We really do. We have a great guest. Laura Tempest Zakroff is here with us tonight. We're going to bring her on in a little while. And I just want to tell everybody who was asking about Warren Kaler, who we were planning to talk to. And Warren had a little problem with a home invasion in the UK. And ended up in the hospital, poor guy. So anyways, he's going to come back, and he'll be talking to us about physical mediumship as soon as he is able. But for tonight, we have, again, Laura Tempest Zakroff, and she's got a new book. She is going to teach us all about Sigil Witchery. And the book's great. We loved reading it. And so we're going to get into the details of this so everybody can learn how to use these sigils to draw things into their lives. And there's so many ways to do it. We're going to have to talk about it. We're just going to have to get into it. But before we do, PK, tell us what's going on numerologically. What do we have to look forward to here?
Well, it's kind of like wrapping up more than looking forward, because today's the 9 Universal Day. And every time we deal with the 9, it's getting rid of what doesn't fit anymore. But it's also about creativity, communications, and what we do for other people. And this is fitting in perfectly with what our plans are when we were talking about prayer requests.
Yes, that's right.
That part I'm turning over to you to talk about, and then we'll kind of pull this back and forth, because as the numbers stand right now, we are in perfect alignment for communications of all forms, and when we're taking a look at it for the best of intentions for everybody else, and it matches very well with the show we have tonight as well.
It certainly does, yes. And so what PK and I are planning to do is this. We are going to be offering one show that we're going to start. We're going to probably continue this throughout the year, but it's going to be a prayer-centered show where we take requests ahead of time from people who want prayers said for, it can be yourself, it can be for somebody in your family, a friend, or prayers over a situation. And so all we ask is that you send us an email and just detail what's going on, so we have a bit of a story to share with everybody, and so we know what we're praying for and who we're praying for. And PK, you're going to be handling the spiritual number side of that. And then we're bringing George Lugo into the mix. He's a very famous psychic medium. He's been on our show before, and he's going to add his impressions, his psychic impressions, to what's happening in this person's or the situation, life. How is this going on? Why is it going on? And then I'm going to bring in the spirit team for the situation or these people, and we'll take it from there. We are then going to send these prayers out so these things can resolve, whether it be for healing or a better life or something to settle down that needs to settle down. We'll take care of it from there.
And I think the nice part about this is, because if they're kind enough to give us their name or a birthday, we can add additional information to what's going on. It's like today for the book that we have that Laura has written. I took a look at the title to see how come. So Sigil for Witchery, perfect. The Sigil is a 2. The Witcher is a 5. The 2 as the title become a 7, which is the teacher, the student, and spirituality. Couldn't ask for a better title.
That's right. That's right.
It's
that's no accident here.
No, not at all. It's surprising. We don't think about it, but when we put something together and we take it apart and look at it, wow, how did this happen? But it's perfect. It gives us exactly what we need for everybody else to say, hey, this is on my page and it's for me.
Yes.
Good job, Laura.
Yes, perfect. And so for people who want to send in prayer requests, and again, give us as much detail as you feel comfortable giving us. You can go to Supernatural Girlz, that's with Z.com, and on the upper right-hand corner of our homepage, you will see my email address. It's linked. You can just click on it, and I have a little bit of an explanation about the prayer circle that we're going to be doing on the air live. And just click on the link, send us your prayer requests. We will collect them, and then we're going to plan to do the show. We'll let you know ahead of time when that's going to be, so that you can also join the prayer circle should you desire to do so. We'd love to have more company, because the name of the show is When Two or More Are Gathered. And when 2 or more are gathered, anything is possible.
That's true.
So Yes.
And we aren't going to give their names out, so they don't have to worry about something on that side of it.
We're not going to reveal personal details that would identify, but for our benefit to be able to give you the information, you can tell us as much as you feel comfortable doing that, giving us the information we need to construct a prayer that's going to make sense for what you're asking for. So now I also wanted to mention, I hate to bring it up, I'm sorry, but
I know it's coming.
Tax time.
That's right. I knew it.
And if you're a property owner, that there's a book out there that you need to have in your hot little hand if you don't already. Are you getting screwed on your property taxes? How to find out and how to fix it. It is written by attorney Patricia Quintillion, and she has all the horror stories in that book. It'll make you laugh. It'll make you cry if it's you. But Patricia Quintillion has created a great book. It's a fabulous resource. It'll tell you the steps you need to take to make sure you're not being even more taken advantage of in this horrible system. But she'll help you all the way through it. She'll hold your hand throughout this book. It's very well done. And you can find that on our website. You can just click on it. It'll take you to Amazon. Are you getting screwed on your property taxes? How to find out and how to fix it. Now, in Massachusetts, you only have until the end of January to file for your abatement. If you don't do it by then, you're done. You're stuck paying whatever taxes they've affixed to your property. So you're running out of time if this is something that you want to take a look at. But it'll teach you how to read your property record card, what is a property record card, and then the whole system, how it's stacked against you. But with Patricia Quintillion's help, you can beat it. You can make it more fair for you. So take a look at that book if you're a property owner. And then we also have the famous Opus Mago Kabbalisticum, which is an ancient German book. It is fabulous. As I mentioned before, it was found in a Harry Potter type library in a secret location. Lon Duquette told us that he saw that book there. He was amazed that there it was. We had it translated, and it is available now. You can also get that on Amazon. You can click on it on the Supernatural Girlz website. And be sure to also go to our Facebook page, like us, follow us, because we've got great supernatural stories there. So take a look at that. In the next couple of weeks, we have another thing. We're debuting supernatural bedtime stories on our YouTube channel. So if you would like to have me read you a bedtime story from the supernatural, I will be doing that. And you will be able to find it on our YouTube channel along with all of our shows. So some nice enhancements coming up from Supernatural Girlz. And don't miss out. Sign up for the Fringe Files, our newsletter, and be sure to visit our Facebook page often so you can keep up with what we're doing, because it's all great stuff.
Of course it is.
It is. It is. It's all great. So anyhow, tonight though, we love this book, and because we love the concept of being able to draw something, and as you're drawing something, you are drawing something in. So it's something that really counts. It's something that really matters. So let me tell you a little bit about Laura, everybody. She's a professional artist, an author, a dancer, designer, and a witch. And she holds a Bachelor's of Fine Arts from the Rhode Island School of Design. And her artwork has received awards and honors worldwide. Yes, and we've seen her art. It's incredible. Laura has been a practicing modern traditional witch for over 2 decades and revels in the intersection of her various paths with witchcraft. And she's here with us tonight. We're so lucky to have her. So, Laura, welcome to the show.
Thank you. Thank you for having me back.
Yes.
Thrilled.
We love having you here. You have so much to share with us about. Now, I always want to say sigil, but that's not how you say it. It's sigil, right?
Sigil. Yes, sigil is correct. And there is that little part in the book, because a lot of people don't know how to pronounce it. And when I was writing, I asked folks, like, do you know how to pronounce sigil? And there was a whole array of different responses. So sigil is the most common.
So sigil is the correct way to say it. So tell us again more about this. What is a sigil? How did you work with sigils? It's a part of your practice. So tell us all about what you've come to learn about these magical symbols.
Well, a sigil is any mark that you can carve, draw, paint, that has magical power to it. That's a symbol that you create or has been created that holds power. And for me personally, that has been an array of designs that I have incorporated into my artwork over the years. There are many different ways of crafting sigils. Mine is a very intuitive process. It's a very right brain type of process. That means if you tend to think creatively and in pictures, it's going to be very easy for you to pick it up, even if you're not very good at drawing. And so what happened is over the years, as people were looking at my artwork and I was explaining, I teach a class called Visual Alchemy, which is on the intersection of art and magic. And you're like, well, how do you craft these sigils? And if you're not using the chaos magic or the ceremonial magic approach to sigils. And I'm like, oh, I have to think about that, because it's always been such an innate process. When I'm creating art, it's a sense of balance and what kind of energy do I want to bring into it. And so I broke it down into a workshop setting. And then the immediate response to that was, when are you putting this in a book? So therefore we
exactly.
have manifested a book.
Well, because like you said, you don't have to be a fine artist as you are to be able to create your own sigils. So you can do that even without artistic training.
Right. If you can make an X for your name or a squiggle, if you can doodle on a piece of paper, you can make a sigil.
Wow. Beautiful. Even I can do that.
Oh, working on it.
Now, tell us more about how people can use sigils. And you have a lot of great examples in your book. Mm-hmm. For money, for love, but you also have examples of what not to do. So can you go through that a little bit with us?
Sure. So a sigil is essentially a condensed spell. So anything that you might cast a spell for, or even create a prayer, just latching onto what you guys were just talking about, you can make a sigil for. It can be a personal thing in the sense that you're trying to create change in your own life, whether that is love, prosperity, mental or spiritual, emotional healing. It can be for protecting your body as well as your personal space, such as an office space. If you have problems with coworkers that keep coming into your space or stealing your office chair, you can create a for that. And for protecting your household, it can be a group symbol where if you're doing a festival or having a gathering of people who work together, if you have common goals that you want to define into a sigil is perfect for that, because you can create a symbol that's for everyone together that unites your purpose. And so pretty much anything you can think of. At the same time, with traditional spell work or sympathetic magic, you want to be specific about what you want. You don't just do, oh, I just want a love spell. I want love to come into my life. You want to be specific about how you want things to manifest. But at the same time, not too specific, because you don't want to get yourself into a sticky bind. So in that example of that love spell, you might want to focus on, I want to have a strong partnership that is respectful, that is long-term, that has all these things, rather than saying, I want to have a relationship with Pat. I want that with Pat. And, you're like, well, what if that person's not the right person for you, and you bypass an excellent relationship because you're so fixated on this one person. So there's a golden mean between being too general and too specific that we talk about extensively in the book. Same with the job, right? You're like, oh, I'll do a spell for a job. Well, what do you want from a job? How much money do you want to make? How many hours do you want to work? And in the crafting of a sigil, you can contemplate all of these different elements and put it together so that you can manifest what you're looking for rather than the wrong thing.
Makes
so now
sense.
let's go back to the job situation. Mm-hmm. So now let's say somebody gets their balance here and they ask in a good way for what they want. They create their sigil. Where do they put it?
So the next step, actually we could say the 4 steps for this is, the 1, figure out what your problem is, that you are solving your issue or designing a solution. Part 2 is to brainstorm. 3 is design it. And 4 is what I call apply and acknowledge. So if it's for a job, let's say you're going to go for an interview, that is something that maybe you can take an essential oil and draw it on your skin. like an invisible spot, especially with something like rosemary, which stimulates memory and mental activities, right? Or some other thing that makes you feel powerful and eloquent at the same time. You could have a tie that you stitch it into or draw it on the back in a Sharpie, that no one else can see. You can stitch it or draw it in your underwear or your socks if you want to do it that way. It can be on a Post-it note that you can stick into your wallet, right? There are so many different things. You can now actually have your morning sandwich or your after, you can make it in mustard. And you're like, this is my power sandwich for the day, and I'm gonna, absorb that. There are so many different ways you can do it. It's a matter of what you feel comfortable with. And it doesn't, as you can see, it doesn't require anything fancy. You don't need to have very expensive materials. If all you have is a ballpoint pen that you acquired from the bank and or the doctor's office.
You check at my desk.
Yes. There, keep it in your home. And a Post-it note, or a scrap of paper, that's all you need. And it can happen at the time you need it to happen, instead of being like, well, what's the moon doing? And is it the right hour? And all these different things. Like, the time of need is the most important thing, rather than all the fancy accoutrements. They're nice. They're wonderful. They can add another layer to your practice. But even if you're like, I don't know what those things are, you don't need to know. You just need to know what is it that you want to manifest.
I love that, because I always get confused when there's too many steps and, having to look up lunar pattern. I just, it's too much. So this is a much simpler way. Go ahead, PK.
I was going to say, duration of time. Everybody wants quick fix, instantaneous gratification. So they put the sigil together and put it out there. Do they have a time frame that they can feel that this will manifest during a certain period of time? Or it's one of these things that can be a long, drawn-out process that they have to work with and be open to?
Well, you can design it to have a specific time period. So if you're saying, okay,
that's good.
You can say, all right, 4 weeks, and then you can incorporate 4 or 28 days, whatever the mathematical aspect of it, into your sigil. If it's a big, there's some goals that are immediate goals.
Right.
And there's the, I would like to, in my 5-year plan, because I have college or special training that I need to go through, what can help me accomplish the job that I want? And so that might be a long-term sigil that requires study, financial aid, dedication, and whatever, opening the avenues to that specific job that you're hopefully envisioning at the end of the line.
What if you do a sigil on behalf of somebody else that they don't know how to get involved or are a little fearful of? Can you do a sigil on their behalf and put it out to the universe that the sigil do certain things for this individual?
Yes, if they have the belief in it, if they are willing to do the next steps. I create sigils for other people. I do custom designs. And what happens in this process is very much like a regular spell or a tarot reading or anything like that, is that they are opening themselves up to say, these are the things I need. Can you help craft a sigil to make that happen? And so they're already thinking about it. I'm just manifesting it into the drawing part and giving it back to them and saying, okay, well, here's some options and this is what you can do with it. But versus me being like, oh, I'll craft a sigil for my friend and they don't know anything about it and they're not going to be active. Like, that's not really about them, is it? It's more about yourself and your relationship with them. So as long as the other person is willing, open, and communicating, then it can be powerful.
So you could even just suggest to them, this is something I think that you would need. Would you mind if I do this for you? Okay. Yes. And for those that aren't really aware and don't want to, can you still do one for them?
You can't, so when we think about a binding spell, right? Right? That's...
Straighten up and fly right. Let me do this one for you.
Right. And often we're doing that because we care for that person or we want them out of our lives. It has to do with our own personal space and their space. And I am a big fan of binding spells when it involves protection to keep people safe from harming either themselves or from other people. And so that can have changed because you're focusing on it And then that can in turn affect how you deal with the other people, changing and shifting things. Because it's not like this is coming out of nowhere. We're kind of reprogramming ourselves. You can look at a sigil as a tiny computer program that you are writing.
That idea. Great idea.
Yeah.
And it's like, because you've gone through the thought process, your brain is already subconsciously or even unconsciously thinking about solving that problem. You've already initiated, you hit enter or start, and it has begun. And so when it involves affecting other people, then, you know, or it could be a symbol of protection. Let's say you have someone who's like, well, I'm not really into this, but, you know, I feel like I'm uncomfortable in my home or something. If you craft it and you do the process for them, there's still that belief. So that's another thing of just passing on. It has that good intention. It becomes a talisman or an amulet for them to have that energy without them being so directly involved.
Well, that's nice to know.
Yes, that's very good to know. Well, here's a question for you, Laura, from the chat room. This is from UFO Nut. Do you, Laura, know of if any of the cave paintings we've seen over the years are tied to sigils?
That's an excellent question. Especially in the beginning of the book, I talk about the history of mark making. And we have been making sigils, symbols, sacred seals for thousands upon thousands of years. And the point at where humanity started to draw and give a sense of, oh, this is a map, or this is something that represents me, or this is our tribe, those marks have power. And when you go and look at the cave paintings, now most of anthropology, particularly in the 19th and early 20th century, was very much, hobbyist white dudes being like, look at these horses and these, buffalo, and this is what they mean, and it's hunting magic. And, oh, the little circles over there, they don't mean anything. And in more recent years, and I talk about one particular researcher who's gone in and said, what about these little lines? Where are they all showing up and repeating again and again? And those marks most likely had meaning to those people. We're probably never going to know exactly what they meant, but they still had meaning. And if we think about how quickly society changes, for example, the pound sign, right, our little hashtag, right? When you think about that on the old rotary phone, that had one meaning. It was a pound sign or a sharp sign for music. And now in social media, it's a hashtag, and it has totally different meaning to it. So constantly symbols are changing and evolving over time. And so that doesn't mean that they lose meaning. It means that they still contain it. It's just our cultural little points of reference are constantly shifting.
And when my client said, we've gone from hieroglyphics now to ujis or whatever the heck they call those little
emojis.
Emojis. And I go, we've come a long way. We get a cute cat versus what used to be.
Yeah, but you're right. The meanings have changed, but we will probably never know, what they intended from way back then. Here's another question for you from Katniss, who's saying, hi, have any of the meanings behind the same symbols changed over time? Well, you just answered that question by talking about the hashtag. That is actually what is happening. Our language continues to evolve. But with the sigils, you're talking about power, right? Talking about drawing something in that we can use to refocus or to manifest, protect, heal, do something. There's something more about the sigil that puts it in a whole different category.
Right. And another important thing is not only do we have our cultural meanings that we apply to symbols, we each have our personal relationships to all of these symbols. And that comes from our backgrounds, where we come from, what we've interacted with. We think about like a stop sign in the United States looks different than a stop sign in the UK and other countries. That is one simple thing. We think about a cross and all the different shapes and variations of crosses. And for some people, it's an even cross, do the little cross, from the Red Cross to symbol for different Orthodox traditions,
right?
To just being at crossroads, or X marks the spot. So there's the larger definitions, but then there's that sense of maybe for you, the inverted 5-pointed star is about personal rooting and growth and digging deeper into the underworld of yourself, where somebody else might see that and be like, that's a satanic symbol. So
Yes,
two
right.
very different things. But as long as it has personal power for you, that's what's going to matter the most. And so I talk about in the book, I outline a whole bunch of different symbols, and I give you interpretations for how I see them, how other people I've encountered also have seen them, and then give you space to write in. You're like, oh, well, when I see a square, this is what it makes me think about, because that's going to be very important in crafting your own sigil vocabulary.
Right. Now, I particularly liked the part where you talked about putting your sigils on cookies. Because I have a sweet tooth, I love cookies. and I just thought that was great. Can you talk about that a little bit more? Because you just talked about eating one cookie kind of ritualistically every day with your sigil on. I thought that was fabulous. I loved it.
Yeah. Sigil cookies, the best kind of cookies. It goes back to spending many hours with my mother, who is a fantastic baker, and getting all the Christmas cookies together and icing and doing those things. So if you're going to create a sigil that you're going to eat, right? First of all, what is it that you do that you want to internalize? Because obviously you do not want to eat a binding sigil.
Okay.
Unless it has to do with your...
No binding sigil.
Good point.
Yeah, you're like, well, maybe that should be cheese, and that's a different kind of digestive process. But the idea, let's say if you were looking for emotional peace, of self-esteem, of something that you really want to acknowledge and bring into your life, when you physically eat that, you're making it part of yourself, because those particles come together. And you think about the rite of transubstantiation in the Catholic Church, that's this process that it becomes something else. That bread and wine can become, blood, body and blood. And that is not a new concept. That's even 2,000 years old. That is a concept that we have had from the first part of what do the gods eat, and ambrosia and special wine and different things like that. We have this relationship with food and drink that we recognize that it becomes part of us. And so when we bless it, and when we inscribe or ice a sigil or make it out of powdered sugar or mustard or whatever, you savor sweet, whatever, you have your magical crepes, that you're putting that intent into it. And hopefully whatever else that you're making that with, you're also embodying those things. So if you're doing a sweet cookie, maybe it's about improving your mood so that you feel happy and grounded, especially when you're in the dark of winter, when you want to feel a little bit more positive and you're dealing with seasonal affective disorder. If you are doing something, let's say like cheese, that's protein, right? And so what are the building blocks? What are you trying to build up in yourself? You can look at it that way. So it has so many different layers of sympathetic magic of like, how are you affecting yourself?
And again, this is a really simple thing that anybody can do. Bake your cookies, put your symbol on it with a little icing, and then every day you're having a small ritual with your tea and your cookie. I just thought that was great. Absolutely love it. Well, we're going to take a very short commercial break, and we'll be back to talk more about how to construct your own sigils and how to get what you want in your life in a very simple way, but powerful. Simple, but powerful. So we are going to be right back. Again, you're listening to Supernatural Girlz Radio. We'll see you soon. Welcome back, everyone, to Supernatural Girlz Radio. I'm your host, Patricia Baker. I am here with my co-host, PK, all the way from Tucson. And by the way, if you want a numerology reading with PK, you can go to patriciakirkman.com. And you can book a reading with her there. Find out what's coming up for you in the year 2018. She'll tell you all about it, where the highs are, where the lows might be. So.
Yes, and we also need to get in touch with you because dreams are very, very important.
They are. I'm doing dream work with people as well as helping them get in touch with their own spirit team, which is, again, work beyond just the guardian angel thing. We're going way beyond that to find out all about who the spirit team is. And then you also have the opportunity to invite people onto your spirit team. So a whole different way of working with the other side of the veil. So be sure to contact me if you're interested. Again, you can find me on the website, supernaturalgirlz.com. And you can find Patricia Kirkman there as well. So be sure to check it out there. So we are speaking tonight with Laura Tempest Zakroff with her new book, Sigil Witchery. We're going to make it happen because we're learning so much from you.
Great book and great information tonight.
That's terrific. And I'm making my cookies tomorrow.
Well,
I'm all set.
I'll put it this way. I may have to write up and buy them, but I'm going to get one of those little decorator things that you can squeeze all over the top.
There you go.
Doesn't say you have to bake them. It just says you have to put your sigil on top.
That's right. You don't have to bake them. That's right.
Yeah, you could start off with vanilla wafers and go from there, I think.
Great idea. In fact, I was whether thinking ginger snap or vanilla wafer. Vanilla wafer sounds better than a ginger snap.
Usually the surface is a little easier to draw on.
We've got another question for you from the chat room. This is from Ralph, who's asking, is this type of drawing tied to any secret societies like Masons and Templars?
Well, as we talked about before the break, is that we have a really long history of creating sigils. And there is a whole side of ceremonial magic, which is some people tie into the Masons, to Templars, and other types of secret societies, such as the grimoires of the Keys of Solomon and other things starting off from the 15th century onward. So there is quite a history of that in crafting them as well. But often with those grimoires, you often get a particular sigil that might be assigned to a spirit or an angel, and that you draw that sigil in order to invoke that spirit. These sigils are a little bit different because we're not invoking entities with them. We're working with magic, but you can definitely do it as a more modern interpretation of that is if you are working with a specific entity, spirit, deity, god or goddess, you can have a devotional sigil to that, so that when you want to work with them in ritual, you might use that to call them into the space. And there's a very, very long history of actually doing that. I talk about in the Aboriginal culture that in ritual, if you draw a symbol, that is a gateway for the spirits to come through to communicate with the ancestors or the gods. And then after the ritual's done, it's erased because you don't want to keep that door open. But
that's right.
Yeah, the interesting thing though is that same sigil, like say it's a spiral drawn outside of ritual space does not necessarily have that same power. So without the intent to call in that energy, it is simply just a drawing.
Okay. So now, but it sounds like you need to be a little more experienced in ritual and magic to be able to work with an entity sigil. Is that what you're saying?
Yes. It has very specific traditions. Like I said, the ceremonial magicians, those folks who like grimoires and fancy methods of doing things, where your kind of kitchen witch is just going to do what you're going to do. And it's not coming from a grimoire. It's going to be that, what am I going to put on my cookie today? Or, what am I going to stir into my tea? So it's just the idea that lines and symbols and drawings all have power is ubiquitous to humanity. But because of that, there are so many different ways you can do it. So there's not just one method. And anybody who says this is the only way you can do it, it's very short-sighted and small-minded.
Yeah, yeah, because in your book you have like so many different ways to do it. And one of the things I wanted to ask you about is the black-on-black sigil. That was interesting because then nobody's bugging you about it going, what's that symbol mean? So you can kind of do it surreptitiously, just black on black, so it's there, you've drawn it, but nobody else can see it.
Right. I think it might have been that example of the desk chair that keeps wandering, and most of those office cubicle chairs are that black plastic, and it was kind of perfect just to put it right on there so that it's there. So
Nobody else has to know.
No one has to know. It is just simply, oh, there it is. I mean, you could do the same thing, I guess, with like, white chalk on, a white surface.
Yeah. Makes sense.
It can be invisible.
Nobody else would see it.
If you're doing a blessing for your house, you can do it with just water, salted water, and doing that on a door, no one's going to see it unless your door's dirty.
Excellent idea. A lot of times people are fearful of putting anything out for fear somebody's going to see it and may comment on it, make them feel uncomfortable about it. And especially when they're moving into a new home or doing something different with the salted water, it's an excellent idea for them to use.
Mm-hmm. That's right.
Very easy.
Now, you also, Laura, did a sigil for someone to help them deal with bullying. Let's talk about that a little bit.
Yes.
So that, I believe that was one of the examples in the book. So I give you, because practice is good. In order to get good at, drawing sigils, practice is helpful. Anything that we do, practice. And so I came up with scenarios that I think people commonly encounter in their lives that would create the need for a sigil. And one of this was a bullying situation for a young boy who, might know the ways of metaphysics, say he's raised in that kind of family, but maybe too young to draw for himself or might work it together. And so the idea was that you can give him a shield of protection, and if it's dealing with a particular other person, to protect that boy from whoever is the bully. And it would repel that energy back to the bully so that perhaps they change their ways and stop hurting other people as well. So it has all these layers to it. But it's something that he could put on his book bag or on his notebook or inside of something that you just carry around. And the design that it came up with was almost like a kind of a Superman type of shield. So it doesn't look very esoteric or strange. It looks like something that a child would probably doodle, have on their stuff. It looks like it could be from a comic book. And that's, magic right there out in the open that isn't going to draw anyone's attention. But he knows.
Yes.
Many times people put their initials on so many different things. They doodle their initials, etc. If they put an intent with that, could that be used as a sigil?
Yes. A sigil can be used to mark property. I talk about doing a logo. So you can use it in your business. That's another one of the examples of, okay, well, how would you craft a sigil? What is your business plan? So you think about your business plan. What is the name of the business? What do you want to accomplish? And then you craft a sigil that helps you accomplish that while it's also being your logo. And really, when you think about that, logo is about branding, right? It's about creating an energy that the world is going to see, something that they react to. And so that's why, those little icons are so important, why PayPal got upset with Pandora or whoever it was because their blue pea looked like their blue pea. You didn't want, there's a lawsuit over that because you want to be identified, you want to be unique, and you want to be able for people to pick out what you're doing. And that idea of branding something goes back again to our ancient ancestors that said, well, this is our tribe. And so our tribe is marked by these squiggly lines that go this way, while your tribe is two circles that does that. And so we know whose stuff is what, or what land is belonging to these people, or when we're here. So it goes back so many thousands of years.
Yes, it certainly does. And I think that's also, is that something that lends itself to the power of the sigil, is that there's such a long history of it, so that we've kind of got that somewhere locked into our brains as a part of our own evolution. I think that's part of the power of it.
Yes.
Makes sense.
When we think about that, it's beyond just us existing. It's the idea that we could have ownership, or that we have a connection to other people, or our, the items that we create, our artwork, the things that we love, our household. That is that other thing that's a little bit different than perhaps many other creatures, is that we have that awareness of time and space and memory. And that's the amazing thing about our brains, is that we can think about these things in that concept. Even if we're not going, yes, I draw my initials on that, therefore I own it. That's really what's happening subconsciously, even if we're not thinking about it.
Exactly. Well, here's another question for you from the chat room. This is from Catalina, who's asking, is this considered white magic or black magic?
Whew.
Right. Well, if I do cover this one in the book too. So magic does not have a color. To the idea that black and white is very much entrenched in unfortunate cultural baggage, that white is good stuff and black is dark or bad stuff. And if we think about that in current racial issues that are going on right now, we really want to ditch that out the window. It really doesn't, it's not part of magic. It's not what we want to be as people. We don't want to identify that way. And magic itself is energy. And do you say that this hydrogen is good and this oxygen is bad? These are little subatomic particles that are going on. These are elements. They don't have an intention to them. They don't have a focus. And what is good and bad is a matter of perspective. So when we're talking about that binding spell, right? Mm-hmm. If we're trying to protect somebody else, some people are like, oh, well, you're cutting off somebody's free will. It's like, well, what's better? You cut off, this potential harm, or you let someone get harmed. Right. And sometimes not doing something, I find, is more harmful than doing the thing. The same thing with the job. When you're getting a job or wanting to attract a job, maybe somebody loses a job. Sure, you get your prosperity, but in order for that opening to happen, something has to change. It's not always a negative or positive thing, but every action we do has multiple reactions. And so it comes down to, I like to say, is the jerk factor. Are you being a jerk? Okay, then you
possible, maybe.
Right, and sometimes we know that the road to hell is paved with good intentions. Really taking it down and looking at, is this something that is good for myself? Is this good for people around me? And am I doing this purposely to hurt someone or something? And if you tick those little boxes and you're hurting other people as well as yourself, then it's probably not effective or beneficial magic. But black and white is not a thing.
Yeah, good. So, and again, it's like you don't want to impinge on somebody else's life. You want to create a better life for yourself. So that's kind of the focus that you would recommend. Wouldn't that be the way to go?
Yes.
Yeah.
Think everything that we do, think about politics right now. There's a whole lot of people implementing harm and other people trying to implement good. It's definitely not black or white magic. It's just...
Nope.
Yeah. Well, there's
nightmare.
So much turmoil, but even with sigils, what you can do is use a sigil to maintain your own stance of whatever it is, being grounded, peaceful, not adding to the turmoil of the world right now, not adding to the volcanoes going off or the earthquakes rumbling. I mean, it's about the centered part of yourself. And sigils can help you with that. Right? Sigils can help you with your own meditative abilities and finding peace within yourself, because that's where it has to go anyways, right?
When we claim our own power, we start to have more control over ourselves and what's going on in the world around us. And I think that's also why, we're seeing this resurgence of witchcraft and magic and in the media and for young people, is a sense that we've lost control, that this world is so topsy-turvy. It's like, what can you do to make change happen? And magic is an amazing tool that we can use to affect that change in our lives, to claim our personal power, and to help the people around us as well.
Yes. Now, I have a question that came in as a text message, and the question is, can you use sigils to increase your own psychic abilities?
Sure. Of course.
And how would you do that? What kind of a sigil would you create to help somebody with that?
Well, first, I would think, okay, what is the psychic ability that I'm trying to increase? Because there are many different ones. So,
well, let's go with increasing third eye abilities. So, opening the third eye.
All right, and I will take that also as just perceiving the future or the situation around you, and perhaps empathy as well. And for that, so I would make a little list of those things. What I'm trying to do. So third eye is a good little brainstorming word. that inner perception, empathy. And then I would connect the symbolism to those things. So most often when you think about third eye and you think about psychic things, we think about an eye, and that is also a gateway. It's the mirror to the soul. So I might start off with a symbol of an eye, and then spiral energy, because a spiral is about tapping into the root and going in or out from where you're going at, as well as arrow energy if I'm reaching out to someone, whether it's to the future, if you're trying to particularly predict or get a better sense of the future, you might create some arrows that point towards the future.
That would be a fun one to do. And what about healing? How do you use sigils for healing for yourself or for other people? I know you talked about an interesting concept, which I've heard of before, with the spoon for chronically ill people. Tell us a little bit about the spoons.
So for people who have different kinds of diseases or disorders that are not visible, so fibromyalgia and different types of emotional things where anxiety overrides their daily activities. There's the concept of how many spoons do you have? Like, how many can you have to handle what's going on in the world in a given day? And so the common phrase was, I'm out of spoons. Usually the joke after that is, all I have is forks and knives. But for those people, you might want to actually start with a spoon as the base of your symbol, that you want to be able to tap into something. So that is one kind of healing, to give you that energy. Other kinds of healing depend on what is the factor, what is the disease. Is someone dealing with cancer? Are they dealing with a long-term diagnosis of dealing with, say, diabetes? And so that they need to develop a daily practice with testing their blood and making sure they take their insulin or their pill every day, because that's daily dedication. And so for a diabetic person, it's a matter of focusing on time and schedule and creating a sigil that taps into that, so that you can maintain a healthy lifestyle and not have the horrible complications that come from not taking care of diabetes. So focusing on the illness, how it can be taken care of, and then you craft a sigil that incorporate those elements.
Right. And so, again, I just want to mention, this doesn't take the place of medical care, obviously. People who have these illnesses are working with medical professionals. But from a spiritual perspective, I think it helps to get some more support. It's when I see what's going on with chronic illness today, and there's a lot of it. I mean, there seems to be an explosion of it. There's not a lot of support that comes in from the spirit side. So this could be very supportive spiritually to people who are undergoing this type of challenge in their lives. So it's a nice thing to be able to turn to and use. Now, here's another question from the chat room. This is from Grog, who's asking, would I need protection to learn this on my own, like a protection spell?
So meaning that I need a protective environment to do it?
Yeah, it sounds like he's a little concerned that it might be not
detrimental
safe
to himself. Yeah.
Right. So he doesn't feel particularly safe, it sounds like. So does he need a protection spell to be able to pursue this?
That's an interesting way of looking at it. I would suppose if you already have that sense of unease, then doing a little ritual like casting a circle when you sit down and do this space, and I talk about this in the book. So a very simple way to imagine protection around yourself, or a sphere of elements that protect you while you craft that sigil, and then disperse it once you're done. You can definitely do that. It's that kind of mentality of, if you're like, oh, well, I'm cursed, as soon as you pull into that, your brain is already thinking about doing it. So if you feel like you need protection, then it might help your brain out to say, I've done what I needed to do, and then you've tricked it to going into the next step that you need. Because our brains, they are computers, again. They can do pesky things.
That's for sure.
That's right. And we start to create what we're afraid of. So, maybe he needs something like that, a little extra support to feel safe and moving ahead. But basically, creating sigils for yourself and helping your own life move forward in a positive way. It sounds to me like it's a very simple process of self-support with spirit.
Yes. And, if you need a special environment, like some people like to be able to sit down and say, okay, I'm going to do a meditation first, and then I'm going to craft this sigil. And, I have my studio as my sacred space. So when I create something in my sacred space, I've walked into my studio. This is my space. This is where I'm going to work. And so it is instantly special and protected. But, if I'm on the go, I'm also going to do things and go, all right, this is my personal little space that I'm breaking into. So there are many different ways, depending on your personal practice of what you'd like to incorporate. So some people it's a kitchen. So sitting down and making those cookies, you don't necessarily have to cast a circle if you feel like, here I am with my box of Dilla wafers and my icing.
Right.
You're not calling anything in, and that's the important thing. As we mentioned back with like the Freemasons and Templars and the ceremonial magic, you're not calling anything in that isn't already there. You're calling on yourself.
Exactly. A very good point. Very important point to all of this is that's what you're calling on.
Is this something? Oh, excuse me, Patricia. Go ahead.
Go ahead. No, go ahead.
I was going to say, is this something that you could train youngsters to use? Because at this stage, children are so wise beyond their years in some respects, but they're still children, and are watching as they've got between the computers and the phones in their hand. And I'm talking about 7-8-year-olds and such as this, to get them to possibly learn how to do something that they could feel is giving them a benefit in some way without it posing an introduction, shall we say, to what they can manifest in this lifetime.
It's a wonderful thing for children, especially in that range, in that time. They are often in that place where no one has told them that they can't draw.
Mm-hmm.
And this is something I talk about in the book, is that, all of us, we start in kindergarten and first grade and drawing and doing the things. And then it's not until someone says, oh, your drawing sucks, that we stop drawing.
Yeah, that's right. Isn't that the truth? And we could have been a Picasso if they had shut their mouth.
Oh, right. Gosh, you're right. Well, look, we're going to take another very short break, everybody, and we're going to come back and talk some more with Laura Tempest Zakroff. If you have a question, you can ask it in the chat room at irnchat.com, irnchat.com. And we've got a lot more to talk about because the sigil landscape is a big one. So again, if you have any other questions, just send them over to us from the chat room. We will ask Laura on your behalf. So stay tuned, everybody. You are listening to Supernatural Girlz Radio, and we will be right back. Welcome back, everyone, to Supernatural Girlz Radio. I'm your host, Patricia Baker, here with my co-host, PK, and our amazing guest tonight, who's so much fun to have on the show, Definitely. Laura Tempest Zakroff. Yes, with her new book. The book is Sigil Witchery. It is a fun book to read. Again, I'm making my cookies tomorrow. I'm not kidding you. I am making my cookies, putting my sigils on them. It just brings my eating cookies to a whole other level. So I wanted to ask you, Laura, do you have some personal stories that you can share of people you know that have used sigils successfully in their lives?
Yes, I've crafted many sigils for other people as well as helped them design them for themselves. One of my favorites is a sigil spell painting that I did for a friend who was having years of issues with infertility. And so she wanted something that would be, all right, either this is going to happen through my own body or we're able to adopt a child or come to resolution is what she wanted. And so I thought about that, and in August I created the image for her. In December she told me she was 16 weeks pregnant.
Wow, that's exciting.
And this was the previous year, so now she has a healthy, happy, wonderful little boy.
Oh, wonderful.
That's one of the things where you're just like, you put this out into the world and you have someone focus on it. And they've tried for years, all the scientific methods and everything possible. And now she has a wonderful child. So that is
great news.
That gives me goosebumps every time.
Oh, yeah, that's a fabulous story. What if a person is harassing another person, constantly creating, shall we say, hate and discontent in their world? Is there a way of doing a sigil for them to use to keep this other person at bay?
Yes, I would, in that situation, be kind of a protection / binding type of sigil. So I would say, here's this person, what do I want to block from them? So you wouldn't want to totally cut things off. You want to say, what can they do to change their habits? Right? But I can see, in my mind, I'm seeing like a crescent, where the crescent protects the person. So you have a symbol for yourself. And just put that together. And if it's someone at work that therefore you put it in your workspace. If you're going to encounter them, you can put it that way. Or it can be something that you put on your altar. If you don't know when you're going to run into them, so that you feel protected, but you also are shielded from those energies.
Right. And you never want to bring harm to anybody with any of this.
No, definitely not.
You just want to stop the bad behavior coming at you.
Yeah,
exactly. What is for their greater good as well.
Right.
Hopefully, so that it can be resolved.
Yeah, there's someone that has a couple of children, and the father has been anything but nice to the whole family. So the mother has left with the children for safety, and she prefers to keep the distance between the father. She doesn't want to take him out of their lives totally, but now he can see them with someone to sit in with him.
Supervision.
Yes, supervision. Thank you. And so it was some type of a sigil for them to use to keep in a more comfortable situation for the meeting, so that the children won't be devastated. Because they don't stop and think of the devastation to others of putting this wall up in a way of keeping them out of harm's way.
Right. So yeah, I could see layers of also heart imagery, doing it might even be a couple. You can be one where you create to protect the children, and another one to hopefully help him realize the errors of his ways and change that. Otherwise remove him from their lives. There's a whole bunch of different things, and each situation is different. But
that's for sure. It doesn't
have to be an all symbol. You can make several different sigils for that as well.
Yeah, how many sigils can you make for a specific situation?
If I have one specific situation, one sigil tends to be what you need, because you want to focus it down. It's sort of like doing, 20 prosperity spells for the same thing. It's like, why put all that energy out there, kind of repeating it? As long as you're also, what I bring up with that too is, part of when you're doing this and tapping into the metaphysicals, you should also be tapping into the physical. So if you want to, get a new job, if you're not putting any resumes out into the world, you're not really following through with that, right?
I'm so glad you're talking about this, because it's not just about sending it out as a spiritual message and attracting energy back. It's also taking the steps necessary in the physical world to make things happen.
Right.
Doing the work, as we like to say.
Well,
yeah, on every level. You can't just walk away from it. Here's a question from Stormtrooper. Can you mess this stuff up when trying?
I don't believe so, as long as you tackled step 1 and step 2. So if you have thought about what you need to do and you have brainstormed it, whatever design you come up with, there's really no wrong sigil. You'd be like, oh, my design doesn't look as pretty as his or hers or theirs. That doesn't matter. It's your personal connection to the symbol. The only way you can mess up with it is if you haven't really asked yourself the problem-solving questions of going through it. Like we talked about earlier, if you're just like, I want a job, and you're not very specific about it, it's the only person's fault it's going to be if you get a crappy job that you don't like is because you didn't follow through in thinking about that. But you really can't mess that up.
Laura, do you think using colors make a difference? If a person is enhanced by different colors, makes a difference in their sigil?
That's a great point. So colors have meaning. What those personal meanings are, though, really reflect on you. So if you hate the color blue for some reason, then I would probably say don't make your sigil in blue. Even if it, I might see it as cleansing and for purification. But if you feel like green is a color of healing and purification, then you can use green. So that can come down to paint. It can, people love coloring books. I've actually done several coloring books as well. So when you use different colors, they have different properties. But the same thing, red could be love, but red could be anger. So what you associate it with it first is going to be the most important.
Yeah, and red people think of as a power color. And some of the things I was just reading, also the fact that red is one of the things that they put in restaurants because people eat more.
Oh, it stimulates the appetite,
yes.
huh? How about that?
I'm pulling all the color out of my kitchen.
What about, Laura, I know you talk about using the elements with sigils. For example, some people talk about, maybe they should burn them or something. What do you think about that? Is that something that's recommended?
So one of the chaos magic methods is the idea you're supposed to burn it to release it into the world or to activate it. And I believe that when you've designed the symbol, it is already activated because you have gone through the process of creating it and applied it into your brain. You've done the programming. Burning, to me, anything I do with a spell that involves burning is usually dispensing it, getting rid of it, burning away things, right? I look at a very specific type of way. So if I'm going to use fire, it might be for purification. It might be for removing someone from a situation or from my life, to letting go of something. If I want to increase it, then I'm going to think about growing that sigil, which might be a flower pot that I take a sigil, draw it on a flower pot and take care of whatever plant that I put in there and grow it from seed. Or you can take in your yard and plant your marigolds into your sigil format. No one's going to really know except for you that you have your own little pattern going on with your marigolds. So you can grow that, you're growing your intention, and you're thinking about it every day without really over focusing on it. You're just taking care of the plants, and therefore you're taking care of your spell work.
When you started working with sigils, did you put something together that didn't quite go the way you thought it was supposed to go for any specific reason? Did you afterwards go back to the drawing board for some essence of it?
Because it's such an intuitive process, and I've been an artist for most of my life, I've learned to trust myself in my mark making. So I feel like the sigils I've designed, when I've hit the point of completion, they are where they need to be.
They are complete. Okay. Because you wonder about that, because once one starts, it either grows, could manifest into something bigger, or do you start deleting some of it to change the outcome?
I find that if you can condense it down to the most simplest idea, that is best, especially if you want to draw it again and again. If you have something where it's more of a meditation or it's to a deity or something, you can make it very complicated if you're not going to be drawing it again and again, like something you're putting into your sacred space, a painting. You're not recreating that painting. But if you have something that you want to draw for protection on your house, on every single window and door, you're not going to want something that has 50 lines and 20 dots here and all that stuff. You want to streamline it, make it very simple. And simple definitely can do the trick. Very good.
Sometimes we overload. It's like we need the plain little black dress. We don't have to put too much jewelry on it.
That's right. Now, Laura, please tell us where people can go on the internet to look at your beautiful artwork, because I know you can design sigils for people if they're not comfortable doing it for themselves or they just want your help and expertise. You offer that as a service. So where can people go to do that with you?
So the easiest website to get to is my main one, which is lauratempestzakroff.com. and that's ZAKROFF as in Frank. And that will get you to my art site, dance, design, everything that I do. I have a lot of different websites. So that's the easiest one. You can also go to sigilwitchery.com. And that talks about the book and a little bit about workshops and designing sigils. And the main site, which you can also find via Facebook and online, is Majojin, which is MAGODJINN.com. And that shows sigil satchels, which are these little bags, and they're cotton that I use that you can use to put in your hip pocket, or you can carry around like a purse that have protective symbols, and I custom make those for people.
They're beautiful.
Thank you. Talismans and various different things, so you can see a variety of that. And then just the artwork itself is at Alchemy, which is OWLKEYME.com. So I have weird names for things, so that's why the one with just my name tends to be the easiest one to find and go.
That's right. Well, your artwork is absolutely gorgeous, stunning things. But what I'm thinking of is people who are starting out with this, they may not feel comfortable. They may want your help. Mm-hmm. So how much do you charge? Like if somebody wanted you to design a sigil for them, they have a specific issue in mind. So they would contact you via email, and then what happens from there?
I asked what you want to focus on, and usually it's about starting at like $75, and you get a high definition graphic that you can use for anything. I also do it via my Patreon, which is Alchemy, again, the OWLKEYME. And that, if you start at the $5 support level, you can put in a custom request for a sigil. And just a few words or focus or a paragraph, tell me about what you want to accomplish, and then I create the symbol and send it to you, which is pretty simple. And
that's great.
That is. And then you also have the bags available for sale, right? Mm-hmm. And do you have jewelry available for sale too with sigils?
I have some of there's some bronze talismans that I've got. I'm a little low on stock. It's about time to cast those again. I cast them at specific times of the year to imbue them with energy, depending on what they're for. So there is that as well. But the sigil satchels are hand painted. Each one's hand painted, so that you can wear them, wash them, do all the things you need with them.
Just beautiful work. I mean, you are such a talented artist, and to be able to put the power of the sigils and that intent into each piece, that's an amazing gift that you have. Mm-hmm. I would encourage everybody to go look at Laura's work. I mean, as an artist, she's truly incredible, and I do highly recommend that people contact you if they want some help creating a sigil for a specific purpose in their lives. Now, here's a question from Samuel Thompson. He wants to know, do you do Skype training? So training over Skype for things like this?
I do workshops in person right now, and so I do travel all over the United States teaching workshops. You can keep an eye on sigilwitchery.com for that. I also do demonstrations on my Patreon. We just did one for 2018. We crafted the sigil for that, so I explain from the words right down to the process. So doing individual Skype is kind of, since I tour so much, is kind of hard, but it's easier to focus on offering workshops. And some of the places I do workshops, though, also offer an online version of the class. There's a place in Massachusetts, actually, I'll probably be out again in the fall, that they'll offer that. So if you keep an eye on the website, you can join in on one of those classes.
Now, all your different websites, are they available on your personal page? That it will give you all the other websites that they can take a look at?
You go to Laura Tempest Zakroff, you can view all the little different parts of things.
Because I had a note here, somebody just sent me, well, what was that? I missed it, so okay. So they can go in and do it that way.
Laura, when you've been doing the sigil work, and I know you've done a lot of work as a witch for many years, but is there one experience that you've had with sigil creation that really stands out to you as a complete mind-blowing success?
Yes. So about it's been over a year now. It was actually the previous November, so 2016. After the election, I created a sigil called the Power Sigil. After a few days of being like, I have a lot of friends who are in distress and family members, and I had to do something. I needed to do something to affect the world. And I thought, what do I do best? Well, I write and I make art and I dance. And the thing I can do right now is make art. And so I crafted a sigil that protects and empowers people for these perilous times that we're in. And I released it on the internet. And within a couple of days, it already had 20,000 hits on it. And I have seen people tattoo it on themselves, craft ceramics, embroider it, draw it on march protest banners. I've seen it everywhere because I released it to say you can use this as long as it's for your personal use. Go for it. Don't use it for money. Use it for your personal use. And the number of people, particularly who have tattooed it on themselves and tell me about how it makes them feel, that's an amazing thing.
That's a really great example of a success.
Where can they see an example of it, Laura?
Well, it's actually on the cover of the book.
By chance, it just happens to be there.
It is.
Perfect.
Yes.
So that is the inverted version of it.
Oh, okay.
You see it like that.
Beautiful. Your book is lovely. It
Yes.
and the contents is absolutely fabulous. So it was a delight to read.
Thank you.
And we need this helpful information today, and it's a wonderful way of attacking some of these issues that people have, whether it's health, wealth, love. You can use it for just about anything, right?
Yes. Anything you can want to put your intent to craft a spell for, you can make a sigil for.
Take away the fear factor.
Does it also make it more powerful when you maybe get a group together of people to create sigils?
Yes. When you bring people together of like mind and they're sharing that experience, that is a way of just building up what's going on. So what I love to do for conventions when I'm at a convention teaching Sigil Witchery is that we'll craft a sigil for the convention or the festival that we're at. And so get a list of suggestions, 8 or 9 words of what do we want to accomplish this weekend. It could be being protected, healthy, having fun, learning, inclusive, all these different words. And then they have that sigil for the weekend and they put it on their Instagrams and draw it on their notebooks and share it with each other. And it gets put up at registration so that everyone can see it. And it seems like for every event we've done this for, that really does happen. And people are like, wow, that event was even more amazing this year. Perhaps it was because of the sigil, perhaps because people were focusing on what they want to change or accomplish. It's probably both at the same time.
Yes, exactly.
Fabulous.
I'm thinking this could replace like Tupperware parties, We could have sigil parties instead.
Well, they got
Wouldn't that be
paint and wine
fun?
parties. Why not do sigil parties? And
Why not?
I don't mind whining.
Why not? I think it's a great way to empower the self and come together. And like you said, everybody's like-minded about it who comes to these types of things. So why not?
I think that's
Hey, you could have a whole new thing going on, Laura.
I have a little sigil salons, which is where you can actually have that, where have a small intimate party where people focus on that together, and I can instruct them through. So totally an option. And anyone wants to fly me anywhere, I'll be happy to do that.
That's right. That's right. It'd be wonderful. Yeah. Because again, this is a lovely book, and we love the style of your writing because it's so entertaining. And again, if you could just remind us about some of the things you gave as examples. I just laughed out loud when you were talking about some of your love examples. Like, this is a good idea. This isn't a good idea.
Good ideas. It really, when people look at magic as something, it's so static and you have to do these rules and just sort of, yes, there are rules. There are rules to the universe. But if you play with your sense of well-being and looking at the world, that sense of playfulness and being able to laugh makes things manifest so much easier. because it takes down the inhibitions that we have. It takes away our fears, and it makes us feel stronger and more happy. So being sometimes a little silly, it's like I take my art very seriously. I don't always take myself too seriously. It's that nice balance of, making things happen.
Yeah, and there's even sigils, as you talk about in your book, about anxiety, which is a new epidemic that's going through the country. So you can use sigils to help yourself with that, and again, to enjoy life a lot more. I think we all need that right about now, ways to enjoy our lives and appreciate what we have. A gratitude sigil would be a good thing to do, right?
Yes. And you can work that in with an evening meditation. I find that a gratitude meditation at night, so that you go through your day and you think about what you've accomplished and what you want to accomplish. So you can use that sigil to meditate upon that. Or even trace it on your hand or on your chest as you're breathing, getting ready to lay down at night. It'd be really calming and empowering at the same time.
You mentioned using oils to outline your sigil.
Yes. Well, you're brave, though, Laura. You do actual tattoos, and you have pictures of that in your book. What about, now you also said if people don't want to commit to something like that, they can do henna tattoos if they want to.
Yeah.
Right.
Put sigils on their body. So they can get somebody to paint that on, or they can paint that on themselves.
Yes, so you can do henna. Make sure you use the good kind of henna.
Not with heavy metals. Yes.
Is there any place on the body that's better to do a tattoo or a henna than any other place of the body?
I would say there's two factors. One is depending on your work stipulations, because some people work in places where they can't have anything showing, even piercing. So for that, you might put them in a more personal spot. My husband has a sigil on his forearm, and that actually has to do with his health, and because he's diabetic, and so he needs to be reminded to do.
Very good.
And so he can just look down in the morning when he's making his coffee and go, have I taken my medication today?
That's wonderful. Yes. Good. Very nice. Very good reminder.
Somewhere where you can see it versus on your back.
That's right. Well, Laura, thank you so much for joining us tonight. Another enjoyable evening with you. And we know you've got 2 more books coming up this year, so we'll be very excited to have you back to talk about more tools for witchcraft and witchery. But again, a wonderful book, Sigil Witchery by Laura Tempest Zakroff. And again, you've got to check out her artwork. It is incredible. Go to all these websites and you'll be able to see some beautiful, beautiful work. Laura, thank you.